Chapter 6. Ezra would never have admitted to anyone, on the day Sam left him alone on the bar ES, his reason for riding the high Cumberland slopes overlooking Mace Galloway's huge flagging ranch. Yet here he was, drifting along ghost-like under the towering spruce of the high levels and keeping a sharp eye peeled for anything likely to be of the slightest interest. Beyond the vague conviction that a few men on this ranch had altogether too suspicion an interest in Ray Morgan's humble fortunes, Ezra could confess to no real reason for being here. Loneliness had sent him to prowling restlessly, and sheer curiosity had done the rest. For several hours he had observed nothing to arouse a deeper suspicion, nor did he particularly expect to. It was largely out of perversity that, spotting a lone rider far down the rolling slopes, he kept watch as the other laboriously advanced, climbing steadily. For long minutes Ezra lost touch as the tiny horseman entered some winding stretch of canyon or angled upwards across a dense pine slope. As time passed, he grew interested, wondering what errand might bring anyone into this remote area. The time came when he thought he had lost his elusive quarry in a maze of wooded ravines. Circling hastily, careless of whatever racket he might make in the process, Ezra rode in to the upper end of the tiny park-like glade in the time to meet the mysterious rider emerging at the lower end. Thus arrested, he sat his saddle rock-like, lank jaw agape in astonishment on finding it out to be a girl. Well, I'll be danged. It was Candace Cowan, starting in cruel surprise at the total unexpected sound of his harsh exclamation.
Ezra, how in the world did you get here?
She quickly regained command of herself.
It isn't particularly nice of you to track me so quietly.
Howdy, ma'am. Ezra smoothly recovering his aplomb. Well, now, you know I wouldn't have done that. It's pure by accident meeting you, and a right pleasant one at that, too. His smile faded. He pretended to scrutinize her with a new thought in mind. What in creation would you be doing up this way? Preoccupation dwelt in Candace's pretty features, despite her severity. Her thoughts were not hard to read. She had known this older man, a friend of Pat Stevens and long acquaintance of her father's for years. Though he was homely as a mud fence and as unassuming, she found no reason for withholding her trust from him. Instinct alone persuaded her to delay and evade.
I fancied I could find a more direct route to Pine Top, going straight through these hills. It seems I'm not doing very well at it.
Pine Top. Ezra rolled that over on his tongue. It was one of the most distant and deserted cattle camps in the lonely country, laying so deep in the hills that few men were even certain of its exact location. What in tarnation is the attraction up there?
It's Ray again, Ezra.
She ignored his gruff astonishment, her words tumbling over one after another now.
I learned this morning he was met with an accident there, and he asked for me, and unfortunately he can't be moved.
She strove to control her emotion.
That left only one thing to be done.
Pine Top, huh? Ezra repeated the name, not to be stampeded into any credulous extremity. That's way to hell and gone yonder in the mountains, girl. Morgan's been working for Pat Stevens. The Lazy Mare Range ain't miles from here.
I know.
She would brook no delay in which to reason the matter.
But Ray said they'd be climbing for strays, and I'm afraid he needs me or somebody badly.
Ezra shook his grizzled head. Where'd you pick up this yarn?
Why, it was a line rider for Mr. Galloway, I believe. He was on his way for the doctor. I didn't wait.
Candace was frankly pleading now, her hazel eyes hurt by his disbelief.
"Please, Ezra, this is all just a delay."
"Well, I won't be holding you up." Even Ezra's tone of concession could be dogged. "Fact is, I'm going to make sure you get there." The girl gave him a grateful look.
"We must hurry. It isn't often that Ray asks anything of me," she exclaimed.
"Yeah, he's kind of an independent cuss." Ezra nodded grim agreement. "I'd sure like to know." He broke off sharply. No point in letting her know that even now he doubted this excursion to be from Morgan's direct and express request. "Come on, let's go. I'll lead you up to Pine Top before you can say Jack Robinson." That this was a gross exaggeration she did not need to be told. Afternoon came, and the sun dropped down out of the sky, with Ezra still leading the way onward. He didn't spare her or the horses. The air chilled rapidly as they climbed. The evening sky grew bleak, and snow-caps on the distant peaks glowed red in the slanting golden light, and Candace shivered, drawing her jacket closer about her. From time to time, her lanky guide shot her an appraising glance, but offered no word. A tumble-down rock shanty at last appeared, nestled in a shallow cup between upthrust fangs of cold granite. Stunted pine dotted the ragged slopes, and the place had the most utterly forlorn image. The girl gasped.
"This is Pine Top?"
"That's her." Ezra was busily scanning every inch of the lifeless terrain in sight.
"But there's no horses down there."
"Nope." Ezra did not bother to glance again towards the deserted pole corral beyond the rock house. "Nor no hurt man inside neither, is my guess." Candace turned numb and silent as it dawned on her for the first time that she'd been deceived. Her lacerated feelings were balanced between honest relief that Ray Morgan should after all not be laying there gravely injured, and as uneasily doubting as what it all meant. Nothing was said as they rode down to the shanty, with the gaping slab door, and confirmed its total emptiness. Ezra was not long in determining that the place had not been tenanted for years, save by a couple badgers or rats. Candace, gathering indignation, expressed itself in a surmount exclamation of impatience.
"This is not very pleasant, Ezra," she said. "We can't hope to get home tonight."
"Won't even try," he grunted. He looked about the cramped, untidy interior. "There's nothing to eat here, but we can fight off the cold anyhow." Without fuss, she resigned herself to the inevitable, well knowing it was the only logical course. Hearing the faint crack of a gun while Ezra was out gathering wood, she rushed to the door apprehensively. The tall redhead was striding back, a knotty load of gnarled firewood over his shoulder, and a limp coonie in his hand. "Well, we have us a snack," he announced with satisfaction. "There's a spring over yonder, ma'am, if you're dry." He pointed it out. Returning with a refreshingly icy wash-up in the fading light, Candace found a warming blaze awaiting her in the tumble-down fireplace over which Ezra had already roasted the coonie. Despite a lack of salt, her appetite was set sharp, and the wild meat was tasty. Later, Ezra made her comfortable on a fresh pine bough shakedown with their meager blankets. "You get some rest. I'll doze over here and keep the fire up." Sure she would never sleep, her restless thoughts darting, the girl awoke suddenly in pitch darkness, startled to hear her big guardian moving about at the door. Evidently, Ezra had heard some noise outside. He rasped the door open and let the sharp air flow in and stood peering out into the gloom. "Who's there?" His call pierced the windy night. There was no response, and he moved outside, to be gone so long that Candace once more grew uneasy. He came stalking back, growling under his breath, and jabbing the rickety door once more.
"Did you hear someone out there, Ezra?" she asked.
"I thought I did." He was short of temper, as of speech. "It was them pesky coyotes like as not bothering the horses. You go on and get back to sleep, won't you?" He built up the fire. Drowsiness stole over her once again as she grew warm, and the next she knew it was freezing dawn, with golden early sunlight stealing through the chinks overhead. Ezra was stuffing sticks into the fireplace, wakeful and grumpy as if he had never allowed his head to nod. Warming her fingers the last time at the blaze while Ezra got up the horses, she was ready to leave. There was nothing to hold them here. Neither showed any disposition to talk as they jogged out of the little hollow. Their breath and that of the horses showed in white plumes. Candace noticed her companion, scanning the frosted ground keenly as if looking for tracks, but he offered no comment. The biting chill stayed with them as they passed into the thick stands of pines on their downward course, and then, quite suddenly, at a far lower level, it was once more a mild and pleasant fall morning.
I must thank you for looking after me, Ezra."
Candace laughed to herself in a provoked way.
"This might seem all a pleasant experience if it wasn't so pointless."
"Oh, point to it. No fear," returned Ezra stoically. "We just don't get it yet." The words brought back all her uneasy doubts of the night before.
"I'll be certain to inquire into it deeper. Where are we going now?"
she asked warmly. Ezra shrugged. "Well, the Star Cross is right in our way. We'll stop by and maybe think it over there." It was not long past midday when they drew near Morgan's place. Unconsciously, the girl looked forward with some eagerness, but it was Ezra whose keen eyes spotted the four men grouped in a fold at the edge of the ranch, as if they were meeting there accidentally. Their voices had been high, coming over the brush, but they fell silent and turned to watch Ezra and the girl approaching. Recognizing her father and Ray at once, Candace brightened visibly. For her, at least, it all seemed bright once more. She was thoroughly jolted when Cowan's dour lips parted in a forceful blast. "Where you been?" he roared at his daughter in undisguised wrath. Ezra appeared far less surprised than she, staring at Zep with unruffled calm. "Cool down, will you? She was told you'd had a fall from a horse up in the hills, Cowan," he averted evenly, "and we went looking for you. Small wonder we didn't have no luck." Candace looked at the one-eyed fellow in surprise, in his unblushed mention of her father as the man who had supposedly been injured. She understood his purpose, but had principle enough to disclaim any such protective evasive promptly.
"No, father, it was—"
she began. Cowan gave her no chance to continue, but whirled angrily at Ray. "That your game, is it, Morgan?" he bellowed, scarlet to the weathered folds of his stringy throat. "Trying to toll her away so you could run off with her? I wouldn't put it past you to do that too, Stevens. I've heard plenty of your slick doings in the past." Manifestly, he placed no confidence in any of the men present. "I ought to have the law on you for this, and what more, I ain't sure I won't."
"Oh, Daddy, please!"
Candace broke in on his tirade distress. Even Pat displayed a faint disgust. "I expect it's easy to make allowance for your talk under the circumstances, Cowan," he said firmly. "You can't improve matters any more going too far, though." "I'll go further before I'm done," the cattleman bawled. "Somebody's scorched from playing ducks and drakes with my family, and I won't have it." He glowered at Morgan wickedly, as if satisfied of that individual's role as the true culprit. Ray listened to all this with gloomy resignation, saying no word and obviously wishing himself well out of it. Candace sent him a silent, imploring message with her eyes and turned once more to her father. "Will it do any good to swear these men had nothing to do whatsoever with my movements?" she asked stoutly. "None of them knew where I was going or why, and I practically dragged Ezra along with me as it was—" "No more! Not another word!" Cowan bit the order off intolerantly. "I can see far through a shady piece of business as far as another man." "But, father, I tell you—" "I said dry up!" he bellowed. "Get that bronc headed for home, girl, and get going." She saw how useless it was to prolong by a dozen words this hopeless wrangle. Scornful, she turned her pony and started away. "Are you coming, Dad?" she called back. Cowan halted his move to follow, scowling blackly at the other men. "I ain't done with this," he warned them rigidly. "You better walk a chalk line, all of you, or you won't be neither." They watched him jog on, a stiff back to catch up with his daughter. "Easy, Morgan," Pat broke through the heavy silence to mutter. "There's plenty to explain here, but it'll pay to take that pair separate. Plenty of time and no need to rush it." "Don't know whether there is a time or not." Ray's tone was tight. "You better give us your story, Ezra," he rapped out harshly. "What's behind this?" Ezra told them what little he knew, addressing himself to Pat. They heard him out with attention. "A flag line rider, eh?" Pat murmured ponderingly. "Who was it, do you know?" "She didn't know his name." Ezra's second-hand description might have fit a dozen men. "It's that dang flag outfit again." It was Sam who spoke, glancing at Ray. "They seem to be haunting you fair, Morgan." The other's expression was dogged, and he said nothing, looking away. "They wouldn't be trying their damnedest to smash you, would they?" put in Ezra keenly. "Why?" Morgan appeared to find this response unanswerable, as indeed at present it was. They talked it over a few minutes longer, without his offering to contribute anything constructive to the discussion. Pat broke it up at last. "Well, you got out of this lucky, Morgan," he pronounced. "At least we know you're not involved, and that's solidly in your favor." He noted the startled look on the faces of Ezra and Sam as the pair realized that what he had said was true. Ray was off on his own tack, his lean young face hard and bitter. "I'll bore that low-life that started any crazy elopement story about me," he said sternly. "I'll find out who, and when that goes right up to Candace's dad himself." Pat's sour smile was unforced. "It's not exactly a nice yarn," he conceded. "But you'll think better of this ambition when you've had time to simmer down. Shall we get back after those cows and haze 'em along down to China Springs?" It was a late hour, and they were ready to quit when the task was accomplished. Whatever his twisted slant on other matters, there could not be questioning of Morgan's genuine concern for the welfare of his little herd. He was effusive in his thanks. "No, Morgan." Pat declined the young man's invitation to return to Star Cross that night. "We'll drift along. Thanks all the same." They parted a few minutes later, Sam and Ezra indifferent as ever towards this man whose basic motives they were not able to understand or fathom. The fact was, as time passed, they were finding Stephen's hidden purpose equally puzzling. That this nettled Sloane was apparent in his words when he finally spoke up. "Hang it all, Pat," he burst out. "Ever since Morgan's come here, you've befriended him without a question, and so far it's brought nothing to you but grief." "Well, let's put it this way." Pat was indignant. "It's Candace Cowan's judgment that I've played along with so far. She's a level-headed little lady, if I'm any judge, and she stands to lose the most, Sam, if it should prove that she's guessed wrong. And up to the present, I'm not prepared to agree that she has." End of chapter 6.